I'm unstoppable. I'm a pusher with no brakes. don't hear you. I don't hear you. I heard the intro music.
Okay, let's
Oh,
see
there we go.
here. Are we good?
We're good.
Yay! I was dancing and I was hoping I wasn't on the live as I was dancing actually. Good afternoon. Welcome to all. Welcome to the premiere show of the Doctora Diaries. I want to make sure that you can all hear me now on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. So someone give me the thumbs up on Facebook if you can hear me now. Leticia, you can hear me okay,
I
right?
hear you well. Yeah, I have the chat here on my phone on Facebook, so I don't know it.
Okay, I think I got a thumbs up. Yes, I did.
Okay,
Let's
we're good.
go. We're good. So, yes, welcome to all to this fine premiere Saturday of the Doctora
Yeah.
Diaries with Dr. Mayra Rodriguez and Dr. Leticia Valentin Fribo. So welcome all, and welcome to my co-host, confidant, and best friend, Leticia. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Yes.
We are looking forward to this new venture of the Doctora Diaries. This is our first episode. So thank you, everyone, for joining us on this Saturday.
Yes, yes. And while people join in, I just want to thank those coming in and joining us. I, of course, feel this is such an important topic for people just in their homes to be able to access. And so, thank you to those joining us via Facebook, via Twitch, and also via YouTube. Follow at the Doctora Diaries on all platforms, including IG to keep up with our ideas and the upcoming shows and also just health information in general. So, I also want to thank Sound Unit Radio, who is streaming us live. Thank you so much. They are aware of the importance of this topic and in bringing it to regular people, lovers of music, who are out here trying to stay safe and still be out here and enjoy life. So, thank you to Sound Unit Radio. And I want to say one more thing before we start is that if you would like to ask us questions regarding the topics we're going to cover today, please join us via Instagram at CQ Network. For a question and answer session after the show, and we'll be able to answer as many questions as we can. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and start? I'm so excited today is here. How many times have we not had conversations driving home from work, usually, where we say things like, I wish patients could hear this,
Mhm.
or I wish more people could understand this. And when we know the information is not there for them, we know it's not being transmitted. And if it is being transmitted, it's being transmitted in a way that is not understandable.
Right.
So, this is us bringing Myra and Leticia's conversations via phone for all of you to see. So the platform will talk about medicine and non-medical issues, but it'll be informal. We simply want to bring out into the open topics that perhaps we don't really ever see a doctor talk about. Um, okay, and so we just want to bring down that wall that sometimes makes doctors seem robotic to their patients. So
Definitely.
having said that, I think before we jump in, who are we? And why should people listen to us? Is always a question I ask myself when I'm listening in. So, why don't we start by introducing ourselves? Letty, why don't you go first?
All right. Well, yeah. So I am Leticia. I am originally from New York City, born and raised in Manhattan. Both my parents were born in Puerto Rico and came over, particularly to New York City at a young age. So I grew up very close to my ethnic background and culture, and always going back to PR to see my grandparents and family. With that being said, after years of training as a dancer and a singer in my high school years and grade school years, I ended up going to Fordham University in New York City for my undergrad studies. And after a few years of the first half of my life kind of following dancing and singing in the arts, I ended up choosing medicine as a career. So I ended up going to Howard University in Washington, D.C. for medical school. And after that, I chose to focus on pediatrics as my specialty. So I did my pediatric training at Inova Fairfax in Virginia. Um, and after that, I stayed in the what they call DMV area, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And now I am currently working at a federally qualified health center called Mary Center for the past 3 or 4 years, actually 4 years. And that is where I am a pediatrician. It is an inner city population, so a large majority of my patients, it's a vast group of patients, but the majority of my patients are Spanish speakers, Central America, South America, um, and all of the above. So those are the majority of my patients that I serve on a day-to-day basis. Um, and with that being said, with this new show, so that's kind of who I am. But you'll find out more as we go along. But with that being said, with this new show that we have, there's a few things, and there's a couple of reasons why we did this. So I'm just going to kind of let you all know what the three main things that kind of came to mind as this became first an idea and now has come to fruition for both Myra and I. Um, During this COVID pandemic, things have been quite new and different for all of us. And with all the misinformation that kind of Myra was mentioning through social media about medicine, um, infectious disease, vaccines, illness, hospitalization, disease, all these words that, we haven't had to talk about publicly on a day-to-day basis outside of our jobs. There's so much misinformation and disinformation out on social media. So I think, it's really important for us to take the veil off of what it is like to be a doctor and hear all that and then have to kind of say, no, this is the truth. Listen to me. And so that's kind of one of the main points of this show. Obviously, that is what we do for a living. That is what we spend our day-to-day life doing. And so secondly, I mean, I think, as I mentioned, my heritage is Puerto Rican, and that is important to me. I am a Latina and I'm a physician, and unfortunately is not something that I was exposed much to personally, a little bit here and there, but definitely professionally, I didn't see much. So, we face our own challenges being people of color, and there are other people of color that I know and are friends with and our colleagues who feel the same struggles, and some many more, and some, just a varying degree depending on where you live, where you are, what's the population you serve. And so those are some conversations that I think are really important for us to have. And then lastly, I think it's been hard to maintain our sanity in this profession in general, but also with the pandemic, it's hard. And so, the one of the key things I'm struggling to learn, I've learned slowly and grow and continue to grow on is thriving instead of just surviving. It's not easy. And there's a big difference between those two things. And so I think that's something that is medical professionals and other professionals, this is something that's difficult and something that we all need to put into practice and hope that that's something we can all share and learn.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Um, I maybe later on we'll touch on how we know each other. Let me I'll introduce myself formally. My name's Myra Rodriguez. For those that don't know me, a lot know me through Facebook as La Doctora Rodriguez, always giving advice, talking about prevention. I was born and raised and fully trained to be a kidney specialist in the city of New York. I My parents are both from Puerto Rico, and they both came here when they were pretty young. My mom, a housewife, and my father, an electrician by trade. With the help of scholarships, became the first physician in my family, in my extended family, with having attended Columbia University for my undergraduate degree, followed by my medical degree at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. I then went on to specialize, to complete my internal medicine residency at Montefiore Medical Center in the Bronx. And I then earned my subspecialty in the field of kidneys or nephrology at Mount Sinai Medical Center in New York City. Within the field of kidneys, I'd like to say that I specialize in the prevention or delay of dialysis initiation via lifestyle measures and medical management, the treatment and prevention of kidney stones, and also the initiation of home dialysis or peritoneal dialysis as an option for those who do need dialysis to preserve their quality of life. My biggest motivation in life, probably, but definitely to be a doctor and to do it in the way that I do, is my father and his struggles with his health, and my struggles and my personal experiences, many very negative, navigating the healthcare field, trying to find the right answers for him. You will hear plenty more about that being my motivation and my relationship with my father and his care providers and how he's doing on future shows. But I'd like to highlight the three things that I would summarize as the motivation behind me bringing the Doctora Diaries to fruition with Leticia. And I think the first is what I feel it can do for you. And what I mean by that is, for well over 1 year, doctors have been busy saving lives while trying to protect ourselves and watching the dissemination of misinformation propagated by people without an authority to speak on it. Politicians, everything from politicians to just community liaisons to, and those are important positions, and I don't mean to demean that, but there is a place and a time for a doctor to speak up. And I can't think of a more important time for our voices to be heard than during this pandemic. And I think that it was a failure to the public health sector and the people to not have us be the ones guiding the information. Authorities that were supposed to protect us and give us correct information were at best giving confusing information. And I believe that the use of social media in this negative way costs lives. And to sit there and watch this occur while I am worried every day for my own safety and my own life, that these things are becoming common knowledge, almost as if they were real, as if they were based on science, while putting my life, my family's life, my colleagues' life at risk. So I think it's time to use social media in a positive way, to use social media to level the playing field in terms of those who can get information and those who cannot, and information that is validated and based on science and coming from physicians that see this every day. That's my first point, what it can do for you. My second point is what it can do for me. Um, I think that when your job puts you in the face of loss of life, almost on a daily basis for many emergency room physicians during this pandemic, and puts you in the face of watching people get sicker and sicker and sicker and dying despite your best efforts, then a lot of physicians retreat and they withdraw and they enclose what they're feeling and they don't process it and they become a little cold appearing. It's a defense mechanism, okay? We're not cold, most of us. It's a defense mechanism so we can survive what we see. I firmly believe, and when I have medical students, that's what I teach, that you shouldn't do that. That to be your best doctor, you need to remain empathetic and compassionate, but find a vehicle that is healthy to do it. This for me will be my vehicle where I process things sometimes live for you because I haven't yet had time to analyze it all, and that's okay. But it is a healthy way to use a platform like this. Lastly, my third point is essentially that I'm kind of tired of not of witnessing boardrooms across this country and positions of leadership across this country where the representation of a Latina physician is not seen, is not heard, that there is no voice, despite the fact that Latino patients make up the majority of patients who need care and sometimes acute care in the ER in urban centers like New York City. Despite that, we have a shortage of physicians who look like them. And those that do look like them sometimes don't have a platform to speak. And physicians that are minority in background should get on their pulpits. I don't care if it's your live and you have 5 people, it's your voice and your perspective, and very few know about it. So I think it's time. I think it's time that we put stories out there that people can relate to, whether they're doctors or children who, like me, grew up in areas where they never saw a Hispanic physician. I never saw anyone who looked like me in real life or really in TV until a much older age. So the idea that I could be a doctor could be easily transmitted at a young age if I had seen that. So if someone is out there and is young and questioning a career in medicine, we'll tell you it's hard. That's what the Doctora Diaries is about. We're going to tell you the real deal, but we're also going to tell you about the passion and why we do it and the good days. Okay. And I think we're coming upon better days than we've had in a long while. And so, with that being said, that is roughly who we are. And Leticia, I'm going to shoot it back at you so that you can maybe present your perspective on how we met, because I think we have different perspectives.
So yeah, I mean, everybody watching, if you're wondering who are these two girls and why are they doing this together, like what's this about? So Myra and I are besties. It's, that's the official term. um, so yeah, we know each other back from high school, and
Just a few years ago,
just
just a
yeah,
few.
not that long ago. But when we met, we weren't that close. We'll just put it that way. I'll leave it there. But we were in the same. We went to a very small Catholic private girls' school, so it's there wasn't a lot of us, but there definitely wasn't a lot of Latinas. There was a few, but I think Myra and I kind of, we were both quite close to our cultural backgrounds, and I honestly hadn't grown up with anybody who was Puerto Rican like me. There was a few Latina, girls that I knew that were my circle a little bit, but they weren't as close to their culture as much as I was. And so Myra was the first person I met like that. And I think that was a little strange. It was kind of like, it was a little tense. It was like, oh, I was the only one. And she's like, well, I'm the new one. And so finally, eventually we kind of after high school, and we were always still friends. We weren't not friends by any means. And then once college came around and Myra went to Columbia, which was near where I was living on the Upper West Side with my family, guess what? That's when it all started. We became real tight and became really good friends. And Myra was pre-med. We were both pre-med at the time. We ended up picking different times to go to med school, but we saw each other both through our struggles in med school and pre-med years. And over the years, now that we are both doctors and we made it through to the other side of the challenges of getting to become doctors, we became, of course, closer, and we got to learn about how each of us survived, through med school, through residency, through your fellowship, and all the challenges that came around. And so we became much closer throughout all of that. And now we are professionals. We are done with the majority of our training. There's still some hurdles to be leaped over. But yeah, we talk all the time, and we share all the good, the bad, the ugly, the personal, the business, all the crazy stuff that we hear and see and that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And so that's what we hope to share with you guys and kind of give a little window into what that's like.
Thank you for that. So my side of the story is no, no. I honestly, I like to say that life forced us into being best friends, and I couldn't be happier that that happened. There were a lot of coincidences. I mean, throughout high school, and if you want to know why she says that we weren't close in high school, you're going to have to tune into a later show. Okay. That is a story in and of itself. But I came from a rough neighborhood. I had a rough upbringing. And I did not feel as though anyone who didn't have the same life could identify with me because I was young and I didn't understand that identity is really something you build. And throughout the years, then I went to college right by her. And then we both liked art. So we both majored in art. We're the only two doctors probably in our classes that were art majors. And I love to paint, I love to sketch, and I like anything with graphic design. So we had that in common. We love to dance. We live for music.
Absolutely.
And then we decided to go and be doctors. I mean, we're both from Puerto Rico. I mean, you just go down the line, and life just kept weaving our lives together. I've learned a lot about Leticia, a lot about medicine. I call her for advice, but I've learned the most about it over 2 decades that we've been best friends, about myself. And about the compassionate side of me, the less robotic side of me that she brings out. I like to say we're the yin and the yang. I
Mhm.
pointed the wrong way. We're the yin and the yang, in terms of temperament, in terms of our approach to a lot of problems. But because we approach it by different ways, we see it from all angles and we have a solution usually. And so we are each other's sanity along with music. So, how we met and all the intricacies, stay tuned for the high school years on a future episode. Now, I think that we can turn to today's special topic. So, for every show, we plan to have a special interest topic, which essentially is going to be today COVID-19, fact versus fiction. And the way we decided that we want to tackle this is by giving you the top 8 myths that we hear in our offices every day from patients. I mean, I know that I've heard some of these enough that I do that under my mask every time before I start answering. But it's important for us to give you that information and that answer on a larger level than one by one when we're actively looking at decisions about whether to get this vaccine or not. Okay. So, with that being said, I'll start with myth number one. Myth number one, I find to be the origins of the vaccines that are available, and that is that there are only 4 vaccines to choose from, or that there were ever only 4 vaccines in studies. That is not true. So actually, there were 150 vaccine candidates in preclinical trials. My next myth gets into what a preclinical trial is, so I'll leave that there. But 150 vaccines in preclinical trials, which is usually trials in animals. From there, over 40 can, uh, candidates for vaccines progressed to being studied in humans. So we had over 40 that were studied in humans. And of those, currently in the United States, there's really 3 major options to choose from. So the idea that we had like 5 and we ended up with 4 is not real.
Yeah.
Okay. We had a lot of other candidates, but these were the ones that met safety measures that were ongoing as the vaccine rollout occurred. Okay, so I am just looking to make sure that we continue to be live, and I
Mm-hmm.
believe that we are.
Good.
All right, yes. Myth number two. Myth number two is that this vaccine rollout took 10 months or less, and that is simply not true. What occurred is the following: the entire basis for the target protein, the entire kind of cracking of the code for how the vaccine is going to work. Are we still live on Facebook? I just
Yeah.
want to do a quick check of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
All right.
Looks like we are.
Okay, just making sure because my phone actually just glitched and it may just be pausing on my end, but we will keep going on the premise that we are. Okay. So, 10 months or less is what it took for this vaccine to start.
Yeah, we're good.
So let
We're
me
good.
know if, okay, good. So that it took only 10 months and it's rushed. So why would you want a rushed product? I get it if that was true. Let me tell you why that is my mythbuster number 2. The reason it is let's say you're making pie. Okay, here I go, Dr. Rodriguez with my analogies, but bear with me, okay? I do this to my patients all the time. Let's say you want to come up with a great cherry pie recipe. And so you come up with a great crust for your pie and you spent a long time inventing that crust. But you change your mind and instead of making a cherry pie, you want to make an apple pie. Are you going to throw away the days and the work that it took you to come up with the crust when you still need a crust? The same crust for another pie? No, you're not. That would be silly. Especially for me, I don't like to spend a whole lot of time in the kitchen. So I'm going to use that recipe and build on it. That is what happened with these vaccines. Okay. We spent a lot of time, over 2 years actually, developing a SARS vaccine. Do y'all remember SARS when it came? And it didn't cause this impact in the United States. Therefore, the vaccine was halted. The development of the vaccine was halted. That doesn't mean that you throw away the information that you gained, because it just so happens that this vaccine, this virus, has the same target protein. It is a family of it. So this virus can be attacked with that base to build on for this vaccine. So instead of starting from scratch, they started with the research that had already been conducted for the SARS vaccine. That's why the rollout happened so quickly. I want to just pause on that instead of just answering it like that, and give you a little more information so that the answer is more understandable even. When you're rolling out a vaccine, a medication, a treatment for patients in general for use, there are 4 stages of development for that product, and that are preclinical stage, phase 1 stage, phase 2 stage, and phase 3 stage. Okay, preclinical animal testing, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, human testing on larger and larger levels in terms of more and more participants in your study, so that you can properly assess consequences of injection site, consequences of having the injection, complication rates, etc. And we'll get into that. That's how you study them in those 4 stages. Normally, it takes years to go from one stage to the other. Correct. However, this is for my all of my patients and family and loved ones that have said to me, I am going to wait until this is FDA approved. I'm not touching a vaccine until it's FDA approved. Let's talk about this. The people that grant the FDA approval are the FDA, not a shocker. The people who authorize emergency use authorization, the EUA you all hear about, are the same people, are also the FDA, who accelerates this when there is a true emergency. And having thousands of people die every day is a true emergency. And that is what is the difference between an EUA and an FDA then? More time that we don't have because we have too much loss of life. There is no suspicious reason other than that. So why don't they grant the FDA approval? Because you need months of studying. To switch that EUA, the same people are going to switch it to an FDA. You will stay tuned, okay? So that is the time needed. That's the only difference. So that is why this was accelerated. That is why it took 10 months or less. We did not start from scratch. And at the same time, we accelerated it because we had thousands of people dying every day. A true emergency. For myths 3 and 4, I turn it back to Leticia.
Well, thank you, Myra. That was very informative to clarify some of those details that, get misconstrued out in social media and the media and the news uh, outlets out there. So I hope that was helpful for some people. So with that, the third myth that I am going to address is the statement that I will be injected with COVID. I will get COVID if I receive the COVID-19 vaccine. This is not true. It is impossible to be matter of fact. So just to kind of branch off of what Myra was saying, currently there are about 16 diseases that vaccines are used to save millions of lives right now. Most of those vaccines are given to children. I am a pediatrician. That is what we do. We order vaccines all day, all the time, all day long, ad nauseum. And the reason we do that is because most of these vaccines are 90 to 99% effective in preventing disease or severe disease. Okay. So there's a lot of, all these vaccines have used the majority, all of these steps to reach FDA approval over either several years or 10 to 15 years. Some of these vaccines have been around since the 50s, most from the 70s and the 80s. So just keep that in mind when it comes to this, the approval of this vaccine. It's nothing that it cannot happen overnight, as Myra explained. But to circle back on this myth of I'll be injected and receive COVID vaccine and get sick from it, that is not true because of the method that is used in developing the current vaccines that are out right now. None of these vaccines contain what we call live virus or live vaccine, or, they have no live component. So the genetic material that is utilized in these vaccines and is injected into the human or the recipient of the vaccine, none of these can actually replicate and cause illness, whether it's the COVID-19 or the COVID-2 genetic information, or a virus that's utilized to carry that genetic information into the body. None of those can cause COVID. Okay, so Myra will talk later, I think, about the effects of side effects of the vaccine that are out there. But I just wanted to dispel that myth. So the most important information is there are three main vaccines, right? So we have Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson that are out right now. Pfizer and Moderna use similar methods, the technology for the vaccine, which utilize the mRNA, the genetic information that forms the protein to make the spike protein. Okay, and Johnson & Johnson is a little different. It uses a vector vaccine, which is adenovirus, to do that. So to circle back on Pfizer and Moderna, so basically what they did is there's DNA in general, right? DNA is actually translated. You can use that word in the same way we think about it when we translate language, Spanish to English, vice versa. So you go from DNA to RNA. RNA will translate to mRNA. mRNA translates to protein. So they skipped the DNA part. They focused on the mRNA part. And that mRNA is a messenger. That's what the little M stands for in our mRNA. And that messenger is basically a box full of information, not all of the information, just a little bit of the genetic information is brought into the host. And when that host sees that information, that piece of genetic mRNA, that will actually translate into the genetic information for the spike protein. That is which is the pathogenic part of the COVID-19 virus. So that information will actually trigger an immune response, and the body will create antibodies. Now, that initial information that came in with the mRNA, that will all be degraded. That does not last forever. It cannot. It is temporary. But what is almost, we don't know how permanent, but what will remain in the body for an extended period of time, we don't know how much exactly yet with the vaccines, are the antibodies. And those antibodies are what will fight off disease if you're exposed to COVID-19 and not make you sick. Now, the Johnson & Johnson's a little different. Instead of just taking that mRNA, it's kind of like adenovirus comes along. It's like a little piece of a killed virus, which causes the common cold virus. And again, it is killed or inactive, so it itself cannot replicate, and it is not all the information that can cause the actual cold symptoms. It's just a piece of it. And that little piece will carry another piece in its purse. And in the purse is the messenger RNA.
Perfect.
And they come together. And so what happens is that little adenovirus comes in, says, oh, hello. And the body says, oh, you're a different kind of cold virus. I mean, you look similar, but we've seen you before. What's in that purse you got there? And then the purse opens up. Oh, here's the mRNA. And
That's as simple as we can make it.
Exactly. And then that mRNA, again, triggers an antibody response in the body. The little adenovirus is gone. The purse is gone. Everything that was in the purse is gone. Just what's left are the antibodies to fight the illness if you were to be exposed to it. So that's basically how they work, which will take me over to myth number 4. 2 doses are better than 1. I want the vaccine that has 2, because if it's 2, that means it's stronger than the other, the vaccine that only has 1 dose. Not true. So I just spent some time explaining the difference between those 3 major vaccines. So what that means is the first 2, Moderna and Pfizer, because they work similarly, they both have 2 doses. Pfizer is 2 doses that are 3 weeks apart, and Moderna is 2 doses that are 4 weeks apart. And that's what the studies have shown, is that with 1 dose, the immune response or the antibody response was not sufficient enough. But when you add a second dose, it is. And when they looked 2 weeks after receiving the vaccine, that's how they were able to get to the information as to how effective these vaccines are. Johnson & Johnson is 1 dose because of this, this adenovirus, this vector, as they call it, that carries a little purse of mRNA. it's a little different. And because it uses the adenovirus, it's a little bit more, it's a response that the body has seen before because, again, we fight off other viruses all the time. And so the body recognizes it, and the antibody response, the immune response, is just quicker. And a second dose just isn't needed. So the main point of all these vaccines really is they're 100% effective, all three of them, in preventing severe disease from COVID-19. All three. And I'm going to switch it to Myra to talk a little bit more about all the percentages that you keep hearing and why each of these vaccines are different.
Thank you for that. The information and the way it's presented can be very confusing. That's one of the reasons we're sitting here talking about this. And so Leticia gave you the numbers for severe disease. When we are trying to control a pandemic, that is the most important number we're looking at. How many patients are going to land in the hospital and utilize the space in the hospital, which then trickles down to a public health emergency potentially. So the most important number we're looking at is severe disease, disease requiring hospitalizations, use of a ventilator, etc. I am going to give you the 70 versus 90 argument and talk. Okay. All right. So, um, keeping in mind myth number 4, myth number 5 is I want that vaccine in the 90s. Most of my patients don't know what the 90s really is. They just heard there's one in the 90s. Okay. So let's talk about it. Um, for the Pfizer vaccine, let me give you the numbers and then let me talk about it. For the Pfizer vaccine, before I even go into that, I want you to understand that even the person who is a statistician, who is on top of this information, knows that this is a moving target. A lot of what we're talking about is a moving target because the way you study vaccines and the way you study um, medication effects is through time that we are rushing right now to try to get the information out there and try to save as many lives as we can. So as more people are get it and we are therefore reporting whether we have symptoms or not, the information becomes clearer and clearer. A lot of what I'm going to present to you is trends. It's looking this way because of this research, this number. And I am not going to get into the nitty gritty because I want to present it in layman terms. Okay. So for the Pfizer vaccine, the information that comes for these numbers, the 95, the 94, and the 70%, come from the studies that have been done and in clinical trials, as well as now that we have vaccinated several people, the information is ongoing, and that's why it changes. For the most part, on efficacy, which is what I'm going to talk about, the 90%, for the most part, the numbers are only getting better. It's not that we're seeing that they're going downward, okay, with more and more people getting it. So let me tell you that the Pfizer vaccine has proven, and this was initially studied in about 36,000 people. The study sizes matter. For Johnson and Johnson, it's significantly smaller size, so those numbers may change more over time. But 95% efficacy, which the is between 90 and 97. You'll hear people talk about confidence intervals. That simply means that the number they give you, then they give you two more numbers because the real number is somewhere in there because they're adjusting for potential error in data collecting, which all research has these numbers. So 95% efficient in preventing symptomatic COVID at or day 7 after the second injection. Okay, so 95% efficient in preventing symptomatic COVID at or after day 7 of your second injection. For the Moderna, 94.1%, with the range actually being anywhere between 89 to 96.8%. Okay, that number has remained pretty steady as more people get studied. Now, when you have a medication, forget about COVID, okay, for a second. Think about having a disease, something that affects and can kill people in days, and you have a medication that is 94 to 95% effective. and you simply are waiting on a stamp to save lives, that's where you get an EUA, an emergency use. Okay. So I want to just put that in other terms because we're so busy talking about COVID, 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 and we're super saturated. What are we talking about here? 94% effective in preventing a disease that thousands have died from every day at some point. Now, one difference here, the Moderna vaccine, that number is 94.1% effective at 14 days after the second dose. So 7 days with the Pfizer, 14 with the other. Let me make a very important point. That does not mean the Pfizer vaccine is better. You know why? Because the study that was conducted to look at this data at 14 days. So could it be as effective at 7? There's some loose data that may be, but we studied it at 14 days. So that's the data that we have. Okay. Thirdly, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Here is the 70%. So 66.9% effective at 14 days after one dose. Let me explain why this is a viable option. Okay. The nightmare initial rollout with there are many aspects to whether something is favorable for mass distribution to the population versus one of them is packaging. One of them is having to maintain something at negative sub-zero temperatures versus having it stable in room temperature, which is or in a regular fridge, which Johnson & Johnson can be. And initially we had a little bit of trouble transporting the other. So why Johnson & Johnson with one shot came to be is because some people want one shot. Number one. Number two, distribution, much easier to get around, much easier to store, much easier for facilities in inner city areas where there's so many people to vaccinate and you need mass quantities to be able to administer. Now, these numbers that I'm giving you, and by the way, we're talking about 11,000 people in that study, so that's a small number that has been studied at 2 months out for Johnson & Johnson. These numbers may get better. So you wouldn't want to say no to a vaccine that ends up being in the 90s later because of more data. It's a moving target. So with that being said, you may say that Leticia and Myra just contradicted each other because she just said 100% for all. And now here comes Dr. Rodriguez and messes it all up. No, let's clarify this one. It's not going to be the last time. I just know. I want to say one last time, but it's not going to be the last
No way.
time. So one more time. 100% effective against you landing in the hospital with severe disease and potentially dying.
Right.
Give me any. Give me any. If the potential for killing is the same, for saving you from death is the same, give me any. Where the 70, the 94, and the 95 come in are moving targets as we study people for just symptomatic disease and testing positive. So less people studied, more of a moving target. Okay. The important outcome, 100% against severe disease. Why is that important? Let's go to myth number, where are we, Leticia, here? Myth number 6. Before I talk about that, actually, I'm sorry, I skipped one. Before I talk about that, myth number 6 is the vaccine is going to get me sick. Okay, let's talk about that. That is a valid fear. When the vaccine first was offered, of course, to healthcare professionals, was I worried? There was even less information than there is now. Okay. We were among the very first, and we'll talk about that later. So it is valid to have a fear and it is valid to have questions. It's how you tackle those questions, right? So when you say the vaccine is going to make me sick, yeah, it might. That's my answer. That's my honest answer to my patients. Yeah, it might make you sick for 1 or 2 days. But let's talk about why. Because me just telling you it might make you sick may make you gives you some information, doesn't give you the why. When we are vaccinated against anything, or when it's the same as we're presented with a virus in real life, okay, but in a small contained way, we build an immune response, okay? So when you get the cold, you feel under the weather. Why do you feel under the weather? Because your body is mounting a response to defend you and get you feeling better. Okay. When we give you a vaccine, we are provoking your immune response to produce soldiers that will later attack the real thing, not this protein that was put in you, to mount a response against that protein, which when it sees the real thing is going to attack it and not let it get you sick. So I expect you to feel under the weather, like your immune system is provoked, not much different than the flu when you get the flu every year. Now, what are these numbers? Well, let's talk about the numbers, but with the premise that um, for most of these numbers, the trend is that the younger people are actually having a more robust inflammatory response, which makes sense because the less likely people to be on steroids or medication that makes their immune system weak, and they're younger, healthier people. So, injection site pain, I'm going to give you the numbers for each. First, injection site pain, 79% with the Pfizer vaccine, 78% with Moderna, and so far 49% with Johnson and Johnson. Fatigue, about 54% experienced fatigue with the Pfizer, whereas the report for fatigue was more along 35% for Moderna and 39% for the Johnson and Johnson. Myalgias, which is pain in your muscles, essentially, like when you have the flu. Those numbers are in the same order again: 47%. 20%, 38%, and I'm saying them as Pfizer, Moderna, and then Johnson and Johnson the same way they came out. Headaches reported in 43%, 18%, and 33%. And then we have chills at 31%, 8%, 9%. Fever, 29%, 8%, and no significant reports in terms of statistically significant so far for the Johnson and Johnson. Timeout. For all of you that wrote those down and are now saying that you want the one with the lowest numbers, these numbers are entirely dependent on how many people are being studied. As more information comes out, these may change, okay? But I fully expect that there is a very large possibility that on the second shot with either the Moderna or the Pfizer, if you are particularly in the middle age range or younger and healthy, you may have fever, low grade fever, even a little higher fever, body aches, tired for about 24 to 48 hours because that's about how long it takes for your soldiers and your immune response to get ready for battle. Okay, and start producing what they need to produce. And then you feel better. Later on, we're going to share our experiences with getting the vaccine and how it felt. But I ask you to do one thing when you talk about the vaccine gets me sick. By now, all of you know people who have gotten the vaccine. All of you know several people who have gotten each vaccine, unless I don't know where you are living, but most people have that I know people who have gotten it. Look at them, ask them, talk about this. Don't shy away from the questions, even among family and friends. We don't have to be health professionals to tell you what it felt like. Okay. I want to add one more thing is that the anaphylactic rate, because a lot of times the fear is I'm going to be allergic to it.
Mhm.
So I wanted to tell you how uncommon it is to be allergic to these vaccines. Number one, with the Pfizer, there are 4 to 5 reports per million doses given. So 4 to 5 per million doses given. And these are probably people who you would probably suspect to be allergic based on other allergy profiles that they have or medications they're on. So I don't anticipate this to be just pure anaphylaxis in some of these cases.
Mhm.
The other one is the Moderna with 2.8%, so a little less, 2.8 per million doses. There aren't enough reports of anaphylaxis with Johnson and Johnson yet to come up with a number for them. Okay, and anaphylaxis, sorry that I'm using that, is I got the vaccine and all of a sudden I can't breathe, swollen, emergency for lack of oxygen. Okay, so very, very, very low amount of rates per vaccine for that. Okay, myth number 5 before I turn it to myth number
Seven.
7. Myth number 7, before I turn it to Letty, is the vaccine only protects me. Well, let's talk about that a little. And I'm not going to speak about numbers here because this is the biggest moving target we have. The biggest moving target is that we have evidence that the vaccine does possibly decrease substantially your ability to transmit the virus to others. So that means that if I get vaccinated and I live with someone who is immune compromised, someone who has cancer, let's say, and I get vaccinated, I'm not just protecting myself, I'm actually also protecting them to a certain degree. There's more and more evidence, this is a hot area of research, that my vaccinating myself makes it so that I can't transmit it at a big rate. So that is good data. That's data for herd immunity getting here faster. Okay. Wait a minute. Before you all take off your masks after you get your vaccine and claim that the whole world is protected because you got your vaccine, let me give you the other side of the coin. It's a moving target. That's what I just said, right? So the amount of protection that you afford people around you is still not completely known, especially if they're very sick. So that's why you will still be seeing, that's one of the reasons you're going to still be seeing mandates for masks in, especially in closed areas where we don't know if everyone's been vaccinated. Another very valid reason is the variant. It's the variants that exist that we don't have enough data yet to say that these vaccines, especially the first rollout, Pfizer, is effective against these other variants. We just don't know yet for sure. So, could you get sick with them? I don't know. Even if you're vaccinated, I don't know. So, wear your masks and don't take them off. I mean, we have to be smart. We haven't been smart for over a year and it cost lives. I am not sitting here arguing that people lost money, which many people did, but I am purely looking at this from a life or death, mismanaged public health dissemination of information, myths. Okay. So the vaccine only protects me. No, not true. But before you rip off that mask, there are other variants. And we're not certain 100% of how much less you can transmit it. But it seems positive.
Mhm.
Okay. With having said that, I'm going to go to Letty for, I believe, the final myth, myth number 8.
Myth number 8. All right. This is a biggie. This is the one that really gets me, okay? As a physician, as a pediatrician in particular. So, myth number 8 that we're addressing is I'd rather just take my chances with COVID than feel sick after receiving the vaccine. Please, please, please do not do that. Do not think that. This is COVID is not like any other virus we've ever seen. That we know, that has been shown, and it is true. Okay, I as a physician, especially in kids have colds all the time. The average kid will get 12 colds within the first year of life. Okay, there's only 12 months in the year, so as there are parents out there, and you say, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense, right? So please don't do that. Okay, with COVID, there's something that has been termed post COVID-19 syndrome or long COVID-19. Okay, these are symptoms of varying degrees and varying severities that occur in people after already recovering from a COVID-19 infection. And this COVID-19 infection, the initial infection, could be a very mild, sniffles, maybe a little loss of taste and smell, up until, somebody who was already hospitalized for, respiratory failure or low oxygen. So there's a variety of symptoms that can happen in these post-COVID cases. So the most common that we're hearing are fatigue, shortness of breath, cough, joint pain, chest pain. Some people will have headache. Some people will have prolonged loss of taste and smell. I mean, I've heard cases of several months. I mean, from an infection that happened last February in 2020 that is still ongoing. And they have to undergo therapies in order to try and regain that sense of smell and taste. Um, People are having like foggy brain, problems with memory and concentration. Some people have these unexplained rashes, even hair loss. Okay. So it runs the gamut. And again, this can happen to people who had mild to severe disease, and it's happening in the young and in the old. A lot of the post-COVID-19 syndrome with the kind of brain fog and this fatigue is happening more in people who are healthy,
Mhm.
mid 20s, 30s, 40s, in that age range, the middle age group. And they are athletes who take vitamins, who run marathons, who work out, who, they eat healthy. Some are vegetarians. They are the top of their game in terms of health. They got COVID, they got a little sick, and all of a sudden, they can't run like they used to. They're tired after running a block, after they ran last year's marathon, New York City Marathon, for no real reason. Blood tests are negative. There's no real explanation except, oh yeah, they had COVID last year or 3 months ago. Okay, so there's even institutions in major hospitals that are studying, enrolling people in studies to see what are the long-term effects of COVID-19 after people have recovered, even from mild illness. All right. Um, some of the other things that can be in the more moderate range of post-COVID-19 syndrome, people can have, a lot of times it can affect your clotting system in your blood. When you have clotting problems in your blood, whether it's on a macro level, large level, like big clots, or teeny tiny little ones that happen in your capillaries, a lot of them can go undetected for a long time. And this is why people will present with symptoms months later. So they can affect your heart, they can affect your lungs, they can affect your kidneys and your brain. If it affects your heart, people are having prolonged muscle damage to their heart, which can lead to an increased risk of heart failure, again, to people who were previously healthy. They can have fibrosis or scarring of their lungs. People are presenting with symptoms of shortness of breath and CT scans and X-ray images that look like lungs that had COPD when they were previously healthy, not smokers. All those things. And kidney injury. All right, that's Myra's specialty. She'll talk to you about that. I'm sure many episodes from now on. But that is a big deal. And it'll affect your brain. You can cause strokes, seizures. Um, it may even increase the risk of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. Like this is serious. Okay. As a pediatrician, and as a lot of people out there are parents, and they fear about their children. They fear their children, what will happen to their children when they get COVID. Okay, the large majority of children who get COVID have mild symptoms. A cold, maybe a fever, sniffles, a little bit of cough. They're good a couple days later. Mom and dad maybe were sick and laying in bed for days and high fevers, but the kids were fine. They seemed to bounce back. Well, sounds great, right? That's what we want to hear. Well, unfortunately, the post-COVID syndrome for children has a name. It's called multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children associated with COVID-19. And its acronym is MISC. It's the pediatrician's worst fear when it comes to COVID. And I'm an outpatient pediatrician. I'm not in the hospital, so I'm not taking care of patients with active MISC, but I've caught it. I've seen it. I've seen kids who the COVID, nobody even knew that where it came from. And all of a sudden, their vital signs are all over the place. They're in the clinic and I have to call 911, find out that child had MISC and is at risk for, who knows? They don't know if they're going to need intubation or life-saving efforts. So this is real. I'm going to throw a few numbers out there. Okay. So the data just came out as of April 1st. It's updated every 2 weeks or so for the MISC, this inflammatory syndrome in children. Currently, the total cases are 3,185. In the past 2 weeks, it went up from 2,617. Okay, so 568 cases were verified in the past 2 weeks from previous 2 weeks ago. Deaths, currently 36. 3 more children already died from MISC in the past 2 weeks of data information. All right. So this is serious, and it affects children of all ages. There is, as we are seeing, we know with COVID, we hear there's a big disparity among different populations, particularly Black and Hispanic patients, and that is so as well true with MISC. 63% of these children who are affected are Black or Hispanic, which is we don't know why yet. All right. There's a lot of theories, but I'm not going to get into all that. But these are some of the things that are really happening in the health disparities, not only in adults, but in children. So if I didn't scare you, maybe I did, which
It's
might be
raw,
good.
it's real, it's raw, it's real, it's transparent. It's the phone calls that we have for people to be able to relate to. So we're not, you may not like what we have to say, but it's what we're living, what we're seeing, and it's fact.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna bring it down a bit, but the thing I want to express is right now, the numbers are actually going up with children getting COVID-19, and we're seeing that in um, Michigan and Massachusetts have some of the higher numbers. I think Michigan went up twice the number, double of the children that were affected were diagnosed with COVID-19. Okay, just general cases. So that kind of correlates with schools opening up, sports opening up, kids having, the pizza party after the long, they may have had a social distance sport, but then they have a pizza party to celebrate the win. You know, we think we're out of the woods. We are not. So this is just more reason to get vaccinated. Because if those parents are vaccinated, the teachers are vaccinated, the babysitters, the nanny are vaccinated, that kid may not get COVID-19. If they don't get COVID-19, then they won't get the inflammatory disease or high risk for being hospitalized or, God will, hopefully not pass from COVID-19. That's awful for children. So with that being said, there are studies that are ongoing in children right now. We just heard out in the news that Pfizer has said that their study shows that 12 years and over who receive the vaccine between 12 and 16 years old, again, 100% preventing hospitalization and severe disease. So that is good news. That is not yet FDA approved or has not received the EUA emergency use authorization. So we'll have to wait, but it looks good. Moderna is also doing studies currently. They've already have a study ongoing from 12 years and up. They haven't released the data yet, but there are also studies looking at children between 11 years old and all the way down to 6 months of age, which is great. So
Wow.
the hope is that, the expectation, and you've heard this in the news, that children will be vaccinated by come the fall, at least school age children. So that's what we're looking forward to. That would be great. So stay tuned about that. But, these are all things that need to happen in order to get to some normalcy. Um, I just want to say, where I work, we are at Mary Center in DC. We are vaccinating. So far, I got the numbers. Currently, we've vaccinated 3,516 people in our 5 clinics
Nice.
throughout the DC and Maryland. And of note, 94% of that population is considered racial or ethnic minority. So yay for us. So that's good. And, I just want to say, I've been present with, giving COVID-19 vaccines and counseling adults, even though I am a pediatrician, this is a community wide effort. This is a health effort that we have to do. So I am there talking to adults when they have questions about the vaccine and side effects and et cetera, et cetera. And so, this is happening and I have yet to see anybody have an adverse effect. The data rings true as to what I have seen as a physician in my clinics. And I do want to share how I felt after I had my vaccine. So,
Uh-huh. Please do,
yes.
please
So
do.
I got my 2-dose vaccine. I received Moderna at the end of January into February. The first one, I had some arm soreness a lot the next day, but other than that, I was okay. I felt fine. I was at work the next day and without a problem. Just couldn't lift my arm above 90 degrees for the most part, but again, it got better. Now, when I received my second dose, I did have some side effects. It's true. I received it at about 7 p.m. on like a Wednesday. And then I was working from home that week, which I think was planned. So in case I didn't feel so well, I wasn't in the clinic and having to walk around. So when I was teleworking that day from home, I had a headache, which was unusual for me in the middle of the day. No big deal. I was like, it's okay. I know I got my vaccine, but I'll be fine. You know what? I finished early my work day. I'm going to go for a run. So I go for a 2-mile run. Came back. I know, thinking, here I am. I know. What was I thinking, right? So I come back from my run and I felt like I ran 6 miles.
Don't go for a run,
Yeah, don't do
guys.
that.
The day,
Not,
don't do
not
that. Don't
advice.
do it.
So yeah, I came back and I just felt exhausted. Had to nap, which is rare for me. So I was like, okay, I take a nap. I felt better, well rested. I'll be okay. I was in that bed within 40 minutes. I said, I need to take my temperature. It's 100.4, then it's 100.7. And I said, oh no.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
went and took my Tylenol. I was not feeling well. I called my boss. I said, no, it's not going to work. I can't work the next day. I don't think this is going to happen. Woke up, yeah, did not feel well. So I was down for about a day and a half, I guess I'd say. I did have some swelling under my lymph node, which was quite painful and new. And it is a side effect that I have heard that a lot of people do have, um, which is something to keep in mind if you're going to have procedures done after you receive your vaccine. You shouldn't have it done within 2 weeks after receiving the vaccine to avoid confusion. But that was something I felt, and it was painful. But after that, the next day, after that day where I was feeling down, I felt actually better than ever. So that was interesting. My immune system kind of just ramped right back up. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with everybody. That this is important. There are some side effects, but at least I know that I am not going to die or be hospitalized because I'm infected with COVID-19. So
And
Myra,
that is
on to
a
you.
valid point. That is, we're trying to save lives, period. Our own, our patients, our families, everyone. Okay, so thank you for that. That was awesome. Guys, we've covered a lot. We've covered a lot of information as best we could without inundating you with numbers, just numbers after numbers, in a way that hopefully you found to be helpful, that you found to be informative, that you found to be at a level that you have a better understanding than you did before we started discussing this. Um, I want to leave you with a few what I like to call final thoughts. And the first, I want to share my own experience. I also received the Moderna. I was probably about a week and some change after Leticia on the schedule. So I was pretty scared for my second shot based on her experience. The first shot was arm pain. I have two pieces of advice. One is Tylenol, the morning that you're going to get the shot is a good idea. And that day, before it starts hurting you, actually massaging the area and not letting it lump up, just that area where the needle went in, actually seems to be pretty helpful the next day. And always, I'm a kidney doctor. Hydrate. Everything injected, every pill, everything we eat, there are things that should stay in our body and there are things that should leave the body. You can help the stuff that doesn't need to be there flush out by simply hydrating the day before your vaccine, the day of, and the day after. Okay. I had no major side effects with the first vaccine. I had a little mild headache and the arm pain, probably much worse the next day in terms of the arm pain. For my second shot, I was convinced I was going to get every side effect in the book. I am a doctor, but I am also a human being and I get scared. And for lack of a medical terminology, I freaked out the night before my vaccine, my second shot, based on my confidant over here reporting what happened to you. So don't do that. Everyone is different. I did not have a hard time at all with my second shot. I probably the worst part was that I was freaked out because I only experienced fatigue. Yes, I was very tired. No, I did not wake up and run. I have no interest in that activity. What I did was wake up. It was a Saturday, the day after, and I simply wanted to do my usual errands, grocery shopping, around the house, anything. And I couldn't. I was really sleepy. I wasn't in pain. I didn't get fever, nothing bothersome. I didn't even have the underarm pain. I was just tired. I think I slept 10 hours on that Saturday. Not 10 days. That would be a problem. Okay. I felt myself by Monday. So let me talk about the arm pain because I had my own family from Puerto Rico call about the
Mm,
arm pain. So this is very common. Okay. Remember when I said that we have to mount a response, an immune response to getting the vaccine? The nearest factory for developing antibodies is under our armpit. Simply telling patients that that's where lymph nodes are closest in relation to the shot makes them understand why it hurts. So they stop freaking out about it. Okay. Simply that explanation. I wanted to make sure you did know about that. Um, my experience was pretty okay. I ask you this. Please be informed. Be informed with whatever decision you make. Know where to go for that information. Ask family and friends that have gotten the vaccine, plenty of them. And my personal reason for getting the vaccine, my professional reason is I looked up the data. I didn't just sit there and wait for the television to tell me if it was a good or a bad vaccine. I went to actual resources to look up the information, and I can leave some of them on Facebook as links, so you can also get more information after this. But I also personally wanted to hug my dad again. Been over a year that I had hugged my dad, who is elderly and sick. And so I didn't want to put him at risk. And I simply needed to become more normal again around my family and have family gatherings possibly in the future and look forward to my patients seeing that I'm still smiling behind these masks. So that's why I did it. Um, Final thought number two, our numbers are low. And when I say our, I'm speaking about Latino communities. Our numbers of vaccinations are paling in comparison. Yes, some of that is due to access, sure, but that playing field is getting leveled now in terms of access to the vaccine. What I am hearing from my patients in person, Latino patients, are explanations that are making me frustrated because they're not based in reality. So, final thought for my Latino community, become educated, not among just television. Look for resources, look for help, look for places you can get actual information about the vaccine that's based in life. Because honestly, I'm tired of losing preventable lives. That's the bottom line. We are tired of losing patients we shouldn't in over a course of a year. It's draining, and preventable life loss is the worst kind. Um, Third, final thought, representation. This is a perspective of the Latina first generation female physician attempting to pave their career in the United States that is not really at the forefront of most platforms and most boardrooms across America. And I want to bring it out there. All of our influence, all of our cultural heritage, and how that influences the food we eat goes into how to care for patients and understanding their lifestyle. And so we do need to get on our pulpits and speaking about the impact that being Hispanic and being in a position of leadership can have on others. Number four, what I am seeing, it's driving me crazy, much like Leticia emphasized. I'm a kidney doctor. So I care for people with acute kidney conditions and chronic kidney disease. And those that have had COVID, I am seeing things not just in the lungs. Everybody knows that COVID affects the lung for the most part, those cases at the beginning, especially with the ventilators. But what you don't know is this virus loves the kidney. It loves the kidney. So if you already, it actually binds to the center for blood pressure control in the kidney. I mean, if you wanted to think of a faster way, I can't think of to cause acute kidney injury. Okay. So don't think that this is like the flu. I'm going to survive the flu and I'm going to be just fine with no consequences. That's not what we're seeing. That's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing kidney consequences. I'm seeing lung consequences. Seeing heart consequences. And here's my scariest point, it's not in people who were already sick from these
Mm-hmm.
things, it's in young people that are supposed to be healthier than myself. So, do we know? This is my final point number four. Do we know that vaccines in 10 years, we won't find out something that the Moderna causes, a minor something or other? Sure, we may. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to know
We don't
everything
know.
in the future. But I can sit here right now and tell you that if you get COVID, you have a pretty high likelihood of actually not just dealing with it for 2 or 3 weeks, but for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
So if you can deal with that and be okay with that, then that's your decision. But I need you to know the facts because I'm tired of losing preventable life and I'm tired of being worried about my own simply when I go to work. And I'm tired of not having a space where we can talk about these things in a way that I understand you're confused. So let's help you to make the right decision. My final point is I respect everyone's decision to do with their life what they please. This pandemic is not exactly just that. This pandemic is not just affecting you when it affects you. We saw it affect resources. We saw it affect urban cities much more in more quantity, those that live closer together. So your decisions in this disease, unlike many that we dealt with before, do affect me. They actually affect me directly. So if you're going to make whatever decision you're going to make, I beg you to be informed about it. And lastly, I want to thank you all for joining us for this hour and a half, roughly, where we let down our guards and took off our white coats. That's not a coat, that's a blazer she has on, okay? Um, and we let you in to the fact that we get scared and we get nervous and we don't know all of the answers. And how do we navigate seeing death and seeing mortality? Well, this is one of the ways we do it, by trying to talk to you all into preventing you from going through it or seeing your family go through it. I hope this was helpful. I really do. I think this was what I call a passion project that just lifted off the ground for me and Leticia. And before I send it off to Leticia for her sign off, I just want to say that, Letty, it's been an honor to call you my best friend. It's been a blast to share this journey of becoming Latina physicians and doing our jobs with our heart on our sleeve. It's been a blast to share that life's journey with you. And it's a dream to do the Doctora Diaries with you. And for my sign off, all I will say is stay healthy, stay informed, and please remember the goal is prevention first, 365. Thank you all.
Thank you, Myra. You're gonna make me cry. I'm tearing up.
Much makeup.
Yeah, no, it's been great. I mean, I realized when we were preparing for this, I was like, Myra and I have never done anything professional together since high school. Which is crazy when I think about it. But yeah, this is the first time we do something like this at all in any way. We've never really done anything like this. So it's been fun. I'm glad that, we were able to do this. I know this was something that was important for both of us, and we are bringing both of our perspectives. Not only just are our personalities a little different, but also our professions are a little different, but everything comes together and, talk about the whole person, and prevention is, I'm a pediatrician. That's what we do. We prevent disease. We want to keep your children healthy. So that's what this is all about. And I'm glad we were able to share this with everybody. And I hope this was informative. I hope maybe some of your questions were answered. Maybe some of your the myths were dispelled for you. And I think really important. I know that there's a lot of misinformation out there. So just like Myra said, stay informed. Try to look at multiple sources. Don't just use Facebook. Don't just use, social media. Not that social media can always be wrong. I mean, we're on social media right now, but but just cross reference. Look at a couple places and kind of say, well, is this person really do they really do what they say they do, or they are who they say they are? And ask your doctors. Like, I know a lot of places have hotline numbers for COVID questions. A lot of doctors understand that, and nurses, who are informed and are taking part in this vaccine effort, can answer a lot of the questions that people have. So don't be scared. You're not the only person who has that question. Trust me. We hear a lot of the same things all day long about this vaccine. But yeah, so I'm really grateful, and thank you to all the social media outlets out there for allowing us to be out there in the world. I hope everybody can try to join us for the live Q&A later on CQ Network on Instagram.
Yep.
And I hope you were able to watch us on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
yeah, so thanks everybody, and take care of yourselves, stay safe. And if you have the chance to get the vaccine for COVID-19, get whichever one you can. Don't be picky. Just get it and stay safe. All right. Love to all. Bendiciones.
Just one last thing. Thank you to Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and also Sound Unit Radio
Sound
for
Unit Radio.
streaming us
Absolutely.
live. Please join us if you can at 2:45 for a live question and answer session hosted by DJ Sensation Set on IG Live at CQ Network. Follow at the Doctora Diaries on all of our platforms. Follow our LinkedIn pages. We are going to be posting health information as we validate it so that you can use it to make your informed decisions. Okay. And with that being said, we're signing off.
Bye, everybody.
The premiere show is a wrap. Thank you all.
Bye.